Testing. Will you please rise for the national anthem? Welcome, graduates, parents, friends, faculty, and guests, the Butte High School class of 2020, and I thank you for attending. I now have the honor of introducing the people seated with us tonight on the platform. Mr. Chuck Merrifield, Assistant Principal for Activities, Ms. Sherry Stewart, Administrative Assistant, and Mrs. Brenda Florine, Assistant Principal for Academics. It is now my privilege to introduce the three salutatorians representing the class of 2020. I ask you again to look into the camera, and when you stand, will you please stay standing until everyone is introduced, and then you can sit down. That's the three salutatorians. Haley Jo Powers. Haley is the daughter of Chad and Kim Powers. Would Mr. and Mrs. Powers please stand? Haley will attend Montana Tech. Her major is undecided. Quinn William Joseph Sullivan. Quinn is the son of Kelly and Sherry Sullivan. Would Mr. and Mrs. Sullivan please stand? Quinn plans to major in business or criminal justice at Minot State University. Caitlin Jean Warren. Caitlin is the daughter of Joe and Emily Warren. Would Mr. and Mrs. Warren please stand? Caitlin will attend Montana Tech, majoring in chemistry. Thank you. It is now my distinct honor and with great pride that I introduce to you the valedictorians of Butte High School. Will you please stand when your name is introduced? Stay standing until we are finished with the valedictorians. Sophie R. Barth. Sophie is the daughter of Michael and Susan Barth. Would Mr. and Mrs. Barth please stand? Sophie plans to major in psychology at the University of Chicago. Larissa R.B. Bento. Larissa is the daughter of Joe and Amy Bento. Would Mr. and Mrs. Bento please stand? Larissa will attend Montana Tech. Her major is undecided. Claire E. Britton. Claire is the daughter of Jim Britton and Margie Seckham. Would Mr. Britton and Miss Seckham please stand? Claire will attend Montana Tech to major in biochemistry. McKenna N. Carpenter. McKenna is the daughter of Chad and Christine Carpenter. Would Mr. and Mrs. Carpenter please stand? McKenna will major in health and human performance at Montana State University. Lexia A. Downhauer. Lexi is the daughter of Mark and Susan Downhauer. Would Mr. and Mrs. Downhour please stand? Lexia will attend Montana State University to major in biological engineering. Sydney J. Doyle. Sydney's the daughter of John and Cheryl Doyle. Would Mr. and Mrs. Doyle please stand? Sydney plans to major in nursing at Montana Tech. Emma K. Field. Emma's the daughter of Charlie and Brandy Field. Would Dr. and Mrs. Field please stand? Emma will attend Montana State University to major in biochemistry. Madeline J. French. Madeline's the daughter of Justine Erickson and Glenn French. Would Mr. French and Miss Erickson please stand? Madeline will major in political science. Haley A. Heron. Haley's the daughter of Jake and Kara Heron and Keone Stewart. Would Mr. and Mrs. Heron, Miss Stewart, please stand? Haley will attend Montana Tech and major in nursing. Mary K. Ingersoll. Mary's the daughter of Mark and Dawn Ingersoll. Would Mr. and Mrs. Ingersoll please stand? Mary will major in pre-medicine at Montana State University. Cameron D. LaFond. Cameron's the daughter of Brian and Dana LaFond. Would Mr. and Mrs. LaFond please stand? Cameron will major in nursing at Montana Tech. Brady Lynn Lester. Brady's the daughter of Joe and Tammy Lester. Would Mr. and Mrs. Lester please stand? Brady will major in nursing at Montana Tech. Grace M. Luoma. Grace is the daughter of Derek and Jennifer Luoma. Would Mr. and Mrs. Luoma please stand? Grace will attend Gonzaga University and plans to major in human physiology. Catherine O. Manson. Catherine's the daughter of Dan and Kristen Manson. Would Mr. and Mrs. Manson please stand? Catherine will study engineering at Montana State University. Thomas W. Malott. Thomas is the son of Shane and Dinah Malott. Would Mr. and Mrs. Malott please stand? Thomas plans to attend Montana State University and major in pre-med. Kyra M. Mortensen. Kyra is the daughter of Clint and Laura Mortensen. Would Mr. and Mrs. Mortensen please stand? Kyra will attend California Lutheran University to major in film and television. Karis Pierlatisi. Karis is the daughter of Nathan and Amber Luce. Would Mr. and Mrs. Luce please stand? Karis will major in pre-med at Montana State University. Tegan E. Peters. Tegan is the daughter of Wes Peters and Trish Robinson. Would Mr. Peters and Miss Robinson please stand? Tegan will major in nursing at Montana Tech. Caitlin N. Rapp. Caitlin's the daughter of Jerry and Andrea Rapp. Would Mr. and Mrs. Rapp please stand? Caitlin plans to major in mechanical engineering at Montana Tech. Catherine C. Russo. Catherine's the daughter of Anthony and Amy Russo. Would Dr. and Mrs. Russo please stand? Catherine will attend Ohio State University to major in exercise physiology. Christian R. Sherman. Christian is the son of Chris and Cindy Sherman. Would Mr. and Mrs. Sherman please stand? Christian is the son, Christian has received an appointment to the U.S. Air Force Academy to major in aerospace and mechanical engineering. Tyler Lynn Steele. Tyler's the son of Sean and Tina Steele. Would Mr. and Miss Steele please stand? Tyler will attend Montana Tech to major in biochemistry. Ladies and gentlemen, the academic leaders of Butte High School class of 2020. Catherine Rousseau, one of the valedictorians of the class of 2020, was chosen to address the class. Catherine.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am honored to be speaking to you today as the representative of the Butte High School class of 2020. Before I begin, I wanted to take a moment to acknowledge my fellow valedictorians. Sorry guys, you get to stand up again. Please stand Sophie Barth, Larissa Bento, Claire Britton, McKenna Carpenter, Lexia Downhauer, Sydney Doyle, Emma Field, Maddie French, Haley Heron, Mary Ingersoll, Cameron LaFond, Brady Lester, Grace Luoma, Kate Manson, Tommy Malott, Kira Mortensen, Karis Paralatisi, Tegan Peters, Caitlin Rapp, Christian Sherman, and Tyler Steele. They should all be up here speaking to you today as well. I listened to a speech several weeks ago, delivered to the graduating class of The Ohio State University by Apple CEO Tim Cook. One of the major points of his address was the unique circumstances the world, and specifically the class of 2020, is being faced with today. We are in uncharted territory. We never could have imagined that our last 3 months of high school would be moved online, or that we would miss our senior prom or senior skip day. We are so fortunate to be able to have a graduation ceremony this year. But the class of 2020's journey to graduation day has been filled with difficulties. We were brought into a broken world, shaped by the terrorist attacks of September 11th, 2001. Every parent here today has their own story and memory from that day. My mother, who was 4 months pregnant with me at the time, still remembers her initial thoughts when she watched the news that day, even 18 years later. What world am I bringing my child into? These attacks forever changed our world before we even had the chance to remember what life was like prior. We never knew the world without the threat of terrorism. But from these heinous acts came the selflessness of first responders, who will forever be remembered for their courage. Those first responders gave hope to our nation and began the wave of patriotism that swept through the United States. They taught us all the meaning of selfless sacrifice and perseverance in the face of overwhelming grief and shock. And it is through their example that our generation first learned to persevere. In 2012, when we were in the 5th grade, there was a tragedy that shook the American peoples to their cores. On December 14th, 2012, there was a massive school shooting at Sandy Hook Elementary School in Newtown, Connecticut. 26 people were killed, including 20 children between the ages of 6 and 7. The following Monday, my parents sat my sister and me down at our kitchen table to attempt to explain to us the atrocities of what had occurred the Friday before. I was 10. My sister was 9. And I remember, like so many of my peers, being terrified of going to school for the first time in my life, and being terrified of letting my baby sister out of sight for fear of what could happen to her. And to this day, I keep my sister's class schedule memorized just in case. But when I think about that time, I also remember my classmates, Grace Luoma and Trisha Erickson, holding a fundraiser to light the Lady of the Rockies for 26 days, each day in honor of one of the people who lost their lives in that massacre. That gesture gave me hope for our future. And so, once again, we practice perseverance. So when the coronavirus pandemic hit, the class of 2020 once again persevered. When our classes went online, we persevered. When we lost our final spring sports season, we persevered. And when we lost our prom, skip day, final days of high school, and simply our ability to see the friends who we've grown up with for the past 12 years of our lives, we persevered. Now, I don't want to leave you all feeling that my sole intent was to relive some of those scarring events we have lived through. But this senior class has had to grow up surrounded by the hatred and inhumanity of these events. However, these events have not only brought us closer together, but they have also led to this class defining ourselves through one simple word: perseverance. As we prepare to take our next steps, whatever they may be, it is important to remember what we accomplished when the odds were against us, and that by simply having the courage to return to school when we were in 5th grade, we were forever changing the way the world sees our generation. Because our generation did not only go on. We pushed forward with our perseverance and our actions, driven by the hope in our hearts. Nikki Banis once said, "If you only carry one thing throughout your entire life, let it be hope." Let it be hope that you can get through even the toughest of times. Let it be hope that you are stronger than any challenge that comes your way. Let it be hope that you are exactly where you are meant to be right now, and that you are on the path to where you are meant to be. Because during times like these, hope will be the very thing that carries you through. The pandemic that we are facing today will forever shape our lives, but we will never allow it to define us. The class sitting before you today will again persevere as we have so many times before. Sandra Kring once said, "The tiny seed knew that in order to grow, it had to be dropped in dirt, covered to darkness, and struggle to reach the light." Each one of us is that tiny seed. This will not be the final challenge we face in life, but it will help us grow to be stronger than we were before. It can be said, for those of us graduating in 2020, that almost from the day we were born, we never allowed the odds to stand in our way. I've witnessed you, my classmates, overcome challenges with dignity and a sense of responsibility that comes from knowing that together, we can do more than we can do alone. In our short lives, we've encountered everything the world has thrown at us, from personal struggles to terrorism and even a global pandemic. And we faced them with an innate sense of perseverance that has brought us to this day and this moment. As we walk across the stage today, do it with a sense of accomplishment, of having overcome challenges and having learned to persevere along the way. Do it with a sense of purpose, because there is so much left for us to overcome. Do it with a sense of gratitude for those who helped us along the way. And do it with a sense of confidence in yourself and your ability to carry yourselves into the future, where the lessons of perseverance you bring with you will enable you to continue moving forward, despite what life may throw at you. I'm beyond proud to be able to walk across the stage with this group of individuals today. Congratulations, class of 2020, and thank you.
The class of 2020 has 267 graduating members. Since the fall of 2016, they have worked hard in making their high school years productive and their experience positive. The accomplishments, distinctions, and honors garnered by these young men and women are numerous. As a group, this class has accepted academic scholarships valued at over $2.25 million. While time does not permit us to mention them all individually, I would ask that you review your program for individual student recognition and honors. I would now like to recognize a special group of graduating students, the senior members of the National Honor Society. Please stand. These students were selected for having maintained high academic standards as well as displaying the qualities of leadership, character, and service. Members of this group can be distinguished by the gold cord they wear. Thank you. Another group of students deserving special recognition are the members of the Science National Honor Society. Please stand. These students were selected for having maintained high academic standards in science. These members can be distinguished by their gold, purple, and green cords. Thank you. I was asked to keep whatever I had to stay short, so I will. I'm gonna talk a little bit about Butte and small things, and the small things that matter. First, I need to give a bit of background about myself. Right, I was born and raised in Butte, up on North Montana Street, below the Goodwill Bar. I don't know if you guys know where that's at, but shout out to the Hill kids. But growing up when I was a boy, I would go from door to door when it snowed and ask if people wanted their walks shoveled. And during the summer, I would go door to door and ask if people wanted their lawns mowed. I learned quick how generous Butte people were and how great my neighborhood was. And I would say 97% of the time, I was grossly overpaid. I never set a price, they would just pay me. While doing this, you develop relationships with people. It was mostly older people that were very proud of Butte and the neighborhood. So I'm going to fast forward 30 years later. I was walking down the hallway at the mall, right? So this is a while ago, this is 15 years ago. I had a couple of my daughters with me, and this older lady is making a beeline for me. And she comes over to me and she says, "Are you Johnny Metz?" Now, my dad's name's John, right? Butte people understand, right? A lot of times we're named the same as the people in our family. So my dad was John, and if they were talking about me, they always said Johnny. And I said yes, and she introduced herself, and she said, "You used to mow my lawn." And then it took me back. She said, "Do you know how proud we are of you and the things that you've done?" And she was just one of the neighborhood ladies that had remembered that and remembered who I was. Well, fast forward another 10 years down the line, and I was up at my mom and dad's home. And I was eating lunch. I go up there quite often to eat lunch. And I was up there, and they still live in the same house on North Montana Street. And my mom said, "Did you see that Mrs., I won't use her name because I don't have permission, but did you see where Mrs. so-and-so died?" And I said, "No, I didn't." And so we had to talk about her and how good she was to me when I mowed her lawn and those things. And the following week, I was up there eating. And my mom said, "Oh, geez, I forgot to give you this." And she brought a box to me. And in that box, one of Mrs. Smith's nieces or nephews had brought this box over. So ever since she had known me, she had every newspaper article that was written, from youth athletics to high school athletics to, all the stuff that I had done was in this box. She had kept track of every single thing I did. And I'll tell you what, to me, that defines Butte. That's what Butte is all about. The people and the little things. That meant more to me than I've stood on a lot of podiums in my day, been on championship teams, coached championship teams. I've been fortunate, and I've had a lot of successes. But that meant more to me than standing on any podium. And that's what Butte High is all about, is the little things. So I'd like to thank some of the people that have done some of the little things to make this possible, right? It was a struggle, but they did. Like Mrs. Susan Downhauer sending me an email, saying, "Hey, I think we can, get this done, and this is how." and I jumped all over it and sent it to everybody I knew, and there was no going back. You know, Mrs. Jennifer Loma for putting the screens of the valedictorians, right? When you guys walked in, they were up on the screens, you know, doing that work. Mrs. Kristen Manson for leading the way for the banners and the graduate pictures all over town. J.P. Gallagher and Tom Loggins and city workers, you know, they put them up. Mrs. Florine putting together the virtual graduation materials and honors, you know, that you can access through the Montana Standard. You know, Mr. Bill Melvin, when we first started thinking about having graduation ceremony, I went to Bill and he just looked at me and said, hey, I think these kids deserve a ceremony, and whatever you need to do, we'll get it done. The students that visited me in the office, I had kids coming to me and they said, Mr. Metz, we'll do whatever we have to. You know, we'll protest, we'll do whatever we have to. And, you know, and that's, you know, is a bigger help than you think. Superintendent Joan Art for meeting with the health department, Chuck Merrifield for doing the seating chart, working with Bill, Sienna Ralph and Christine Carpenter for the arrangement of the photographers, Miss Mary Kay Erickson, right, for doing their virtual graduation party and some of the drawings. It's just, I know I missed some people, and I apologize if I do, but I just couldn't get all that done. It was impossible. And they stepped up, and that's what it's about, are the little things. To the class, yeah, I think let's give these guys a hand. Yeah. To the class of 2020, I know what you've missed out on, and I know how hard it's been on you, but you've been nothing but ladies and gentlemen, and I couldn't be more proud. So thank you guys, class of 2020. Lastly, I would like to recognize the people who put some other hard work into this event, the Butte High School faculty and staff, Mrs. Brenda Florine, Mr. Chuck Merrifield, Mr. Wes Peters, Mr. Jeff Arnston, Mr. Eric Mankins, Board of Trustees, Superintendent Joan Art, Lindsay Cambich and Lindsay Woolstein for senior class advisors, Butte High School office staff, Lori Roberts, Sherry Stewart, Pat Powers, Shauna Clark, Nancy Lacey, and Chrissy Vetter. Again, the Butte Civic Center staff and Bill Melvin, you know, and also to the parents of the class of 2020. You guys are fantastic. I will now turn the program over to Mrs. Florine for the presentation of diplomas. Mrs. Florine.
Scout Russell Allen. Tony J. Alley. Colby I. Angove. Dylan L. Averett. Kalani Faith Asbill. Madison J. Bailey. Cameron T. Baker. Sophie R. Barth. Haley Rose Bassnett. Isabella Rose Belmont. Jariah Justin Benavides. Bryce M. Bennett. Larissa R. B. Bento. Jenny Marie Berryman. Riley J. Berryman. Haley Ann Bilson. Bailey Ann Bolton. Michael Joseph Bolton. Andrew J. Booth. Caden W. Booth. Ellie L. Booth. Nathan W. Boyle. Katerina Elizabeth Boysa. Nicholas J. Bradshaw. Kiera L. Bragg. Alyssa S. Brasinio. Claire E. Britton. Courtney Renee Bronson. Hunter James Buney. Jeffrey C. Buney. Paige K. Burrow. Ryan J. Burt. Cassandra L. Butler. Samuel T. Burns. William J. Carlson. McKenna N. Carpenter. Macy A. Carroll. Soraya Lori Casagranda. Danessa A. E. Coffey. Trinity R. Cook. Reese Daniel Cox. Ethan B. Kramer. Cameron E. Criscola. Taylor I. Kraut. Thomas D. Cullinan. Cole Blaine Cunningham. Rachel Marie Curry. Lexia A. Dunhauer. Cale John Davis. Carson Allen Daybreast. Dalton Daniel James DeHart. Nicole Ann DeHart. Morgan J. Dickinson. Kaylin Lee Rose Doherty. Wolfgang M. Doty Basil. Austin T. Doyle. Sydney J. Doyle. Ethan Allen Edwards. Walter W. English. Tricia K. Erickson. Shaylin D. Felix. Dylan S. Ferry. Emma K. Field. Kaylin A. Field. Beretta L. Flank. Sean Patrick Foley. Aaliyah M. Folland. Louis Wayne Follett. Olivia Dawn Foster. Gina M. Fox. Jonathan Jared Frederick. Kyle James Freeborn. Xavier J. Freeman. Madeline J. French. Tucker J. Fulton. Kylie M. Gallagher. Brady Joseph Gardner. Alora L. Jono. Raven Rayanne Goodwin. Gavin H. Gordon. Mace B. Grant. Peyton R. Gunderson. Andrew J. Hamilton. Cassandra Marie Hammock. Myra Love Hamill. Jaden Daniel Hannanen. Cora M. Hazel. Jacinda R. Henderson. Mauricio Jesus Herrera Rodriguez. Haley A. Heron. Peyton M. Heddick. Jenna N. Hodges. Madison A. Hoffman. Maxwell Lewis Holdsworth. James B. Hollingsworth. Dustin Michael Howard. Kaylee M. Hughes. Becky M. Hunt. Brady Christian Immel. Tristan Melody Immonen. Mary K. Ingersoll. Ty Colson Insko. Joey J. Irwin. Maya Jolena Raquel Jefferson. Janelle A. Jip. Joshua M. Johnson. Mickey William Johnson. Riley A. Johnson. Jeremy Michael Juarez. Jonathan Michael Kappas. Trenton C. Keith. Emily L. Kendall. McKenna M. Canis. May Mohammed Khalil. Lucas Brian Kingston. Matthew Scout Knopp. Daniel Joseph Kump. Emma S. Coapola. Trista L. Lacombe. Cameron D. LaFond. Elizabeth Jean Lalicker. Shawnee L. Lamping. Kaylee E. M. Lavelle.